Welcome, everyone, to Buddha Center. My name is Jeff Allen, and today we're discussing Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. Before we get started with any discussion about that, let's do what we always do and set a proper motivation. So let's get into a physical posture that will allow us to have mental clarity, allow for all of our winds and channels to be in proper alignment, all of our blood to flow in a way that will really support us as we become more and more able mentally to sustain meditation. There won't be any kind of physical problems or physical obstacles or boundaries to our ability to even sit once our mind could do it, as the great masters say, for 4 hours on one object without moving the mind off of it. So if we want to be able to have our mind hold an object for that long, we have to be able to physically sit for that long. So, taking all of the kind of deep points to the practice aside, and just think about it. If you want your mind to be able to stay on one object for 4 hours, your body is going to have to be able to do that as well. Sometimes we can just look at common sense within the teachings, and we don't really have to go much deeper than that for it to make sense to us. So we're going to get into the 7-point Vairakana posture. Preferably putting our legs into the lotus position, but whatever you can do, cross-legged or legs on the floor, just whatever within your physical limitations, follow that. So legs in a cross-legged posture, right hand on the left in the lap with the thumbs touching, symbolizing a union of method and wisdom, making a diamond, setting them right in your lap, back very straight, vertebrae like a stack of coins, shoulders in a comfortable position, allowing for the arms to kind of bow out. So just kind of let the hands land into the lap and have your shoulders in a way with your back straight. Your arms will kind of naturally bow out anyway. Head slightly forward, eyes slightly open at a 45-degree angle, pointed at the tip of the nose, with the mouth in a comfortable position with the tongue against the teeth. So the legs, the hands, the back, the shoulders, the head, the eyes, and the mouth, making for a total of 7 points. We add an 8th point to this Vairakana posture, and that 8th point is the breathing in and out. So we begin to breathe in and out through our nose, and we're going to try to get our mind to a neutral place, kind of a mind to a place where it's not distracted by the attachments that we came in here with, that we were so obsessed with thinking about. Maybe we have some aversion towards something that we're so obsessed and we're thinking about. And this, breathing meditation we're going to do, the point of it is to get our mind centered so that we can then focus on one thing and then be able to grow virtue from that in a real way, because it'll be coming from a foundation. It'll be coming from the fertile soil of neutrality instead of closed-mindedness and sullied with all of these other afflictions and so forth. We're just trying to get our mind to the most reasonable place. So begin breathing through your nose all the way to the top of the breath, filling your lungs and diaphragm. And then exhaling, focusing only on the breath, and as you exhale, count the number 1. Inhale, focusing only on the breath, filling it all the way to the top, going all the way to the top, filling the lungs and the diaphragm, exhaling, counting the number 2. So we're going to be making sure that first and foremost, we're focusing on the breath. And then an indicator that we're paying attention and we're in the moment is that we're able to know, okay, now we're at number 2. Now we're at number 3. I'm only focusing on the breath. Now I'm at number 4. Now I'm at number 5. So we're using the breathing in and out as our main focal point. So we've established that our focal object is going to be the breath, and we're going to now breathe in and out, and then more instructions will come after that. Now, while still focusing on the breathing in and out, imagine Buddha Shakyamuni in the space in front of you, arms length away, about two inches tall at eye height. Beautiful, radiant, glowing. However you visualize Buddha Shakyamuni normally, imagine him in the front generation. While you're breathing in and out and counting the breath, now add the image of Buddha Shakyamuni. Think about all the wonderful qualities of this Buddha that you're visualizing. The excellent qualities of body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities that the Buddha possesses. Think that we're so fortunate to be able to put our mind on this type of being and think about the qualities of this type of being that we will become. We possess a mental consciousness just as Buddha Shakyamuni did before he was enlightened, that can proliferate or mature into a pure being. So fortunate to be able to have this day to be able to focus on Buddha Shakyamuni and all of the excellent qualities of Buddha Shakyamuni. Think about the truth that the Buddha presented to us about our current situation. Think about the various sufferings that we have to endure in a very personal way. Birth, aging, sickness, death. Think about the personal experiences that we've had with these, the experiences that we will have since beginningless time. We've embodied various forms and non-forms. We've been thrust into aggregates in these forms over and over and over against our will because of our karma and afflictions. Think about these sufferings, the suffering of meeting with the unpleasant, separating from the pleasant, not getting what we want, and these aggregates that we have. Think about our physical suffering that we have to experience, mental suffering that we have to experience, all because we have this contaminated basis. Since beginning this time, we've been reborn. In the future, we will have rebirths and cyclic existence if we don't get rid of the cause of all of our suffering. We have no certainty within any of these rebirths. All of our companions and loved ones will have to part from and travel alone. The person that I call my closest loved one may be the enemy in my future life. I won't know them as my loved one. Those loved ones that we feel so attached to right now have been so rude and mean to us in previous lives, and we've forgotten. There's no certainty, yet we cling to this certainty that we have. Even our friends in this life turn into enemies, and enemies turn into friends. Strangers turn into both. We go around and around and around in the cycle of rebirth, experiencing this uncertainty over and over and over again, taking on bodies, casting them off, going to the higher realms, going to the lower realms, every time believing that it's all the only you that's ever been. Having no one but yourself to go through this process. All of those closest to us will be like strangers. The pain we'll feel, the pain we feel. This will happen over and over and over again. All the forms of happiness that we chase after that have that self-destruct mechanism within them that turn into a form of suffering sooner or later. Separating from pleasant things, meeting with unpleasant things, having to see our loved ones die and get sick, or not meet our expectations, and then they suddenly are our enemy when they were our closest loved one. At the moment we see it as the only thing that can make us happy, but it will certainly make us suffer when it changes. And because of my ignorance, I will be born again and again and again into a set of aggregates, mental and physical parts that will make me have to experience these things because I haven't found a solution. Buddha stated in the second truth of suffering that there is an origin to all of this. My suffering is a result. My suffering can end if I get rid of the cause, and the cause of all of my suffering is the ignorance that grasps at the self and phenomena as being truly established. Believing that I and phenomena have some sort of independent, objective existence. This belief is the ignorance, and the wisdom recognizes that the I is not truly established because it dependently originates. Phenomena is not truly established because it dependently originates. The I and phenomena are merely a collection that I name as this or that, and then that phenomena and the I comes into being through the power of this name. But there is no objectively existent thing, this or that, that's findable. And it's the grasping at the I and phenomena as being truly established that creates my inappropriate thinking, that creates my afflictions and contaminated karma and my samsara, my suffering. The Buddha said then, the good news is that all of this can end if we apply an antidote. That the antidote was wisdom. In the fourth noble truth, the superior path, the Buddha stated that there is a wisdom that one could realize, and an understanding of the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths and so forth, the emptiness of self and person, that would allow one to then get rid of what causes suffering. The Buddha stated we can remove the origin of suffering and suffering will be no more, and we can achieve a state of abiding nirvana. Buddha also stated that there are higher goals than that. Just the wisdom alone and the desire to be free produces an abiding nirvana, but that's not the realization of the Buddha. The Buddha has complete omniscience because he or she has removed the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. They have complete bliss, perfected wisdom, perfected power. And the Buddha said if you want the highest realization, you have to rely upon a path not only of wisdom but of compassion and love. We first meditate on equanimity, recognizing that since beginningless time we've had all of these different relationships with all sorts of sentient beings, with every single sentient being, every imaginable relationship. So a label of friend, enemy, or neutral to anyone doesn't make any sense. Friend when, enemy when, neutral when. So we begin to be open-minded about equally being willing to benefit all these types of sentient beings. Recognizing that they've been so kind to us as our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters. They've taken care of us when we were so vulnerable. We've had every single relationship with these types of beings. And during those relationships, they've been so kind. When no one else would take care of us, these beings took care of us, although we've forgotten They did. And kindness last week versus kindness today is still kindness. Our mental continuum has been present since beginningless time. We've had relationships with all these sentient beings in all of these ways, and they've been all so kind to us. May we somehow repay that kindness. We know when we looked at the suffering a moment ago that the happiness in cyclic existence is the bait that keeps us here, because it's really suffering, the suffering of change. So we look for a way to really bring these beings who've been so kind to us to a state of happiness. What would that really be? And we know that liberation that we learned about, that gave us this renunciation, that then the bodhicitta that we're trying to get can blossom from, that no matter what, we needed to get out of cyclic existence in order to be truly happy. So all sentient beings need to get out of cyclic existence to be truly happy. I don't want to give them suffering. They've been so kind to me. May I liberate them somehow. May I figure that out. We think about how equally important they all are. All sentient beings want happiness just like I want happiness. All beings experience pain just like I experience pain, and it hurts. It doesn't feel good. And in that moment, when I'm feeling pain and I feel so bad, we know that others feel exactly that way when they feel pain and feel so bad. So we're equally important in terms of freedom from suffering and happiness. We're equally important. We all want happiness. We all don't want to suffer. We all have Buddha nature. We're all the most important beings in the universe. There's no findable self or other when we begin to analyze. We see that self is dependent upon other in order to be designated. In order to find self, we have to say that self is something different than other. And that's how we label it as self. And then other says, I'm self, and then they look at us as other and then label that as self. But there's no inherently existent self to be found. All phenomena possess the same ultimate reality. Cherishing oneself leads to all negativities. All the miseries of the world come from self-cherishing attitudes, if we think about it. My nation, my people, my group. This self-cherishing attitude, which just absolutely cares nothing about others, just wants what it wants when it wants it, has caused us all of our troubles. Selfishly running after things, using weapons, and fighting and screaming, and when we don't get what we want, we blame other people. And it's really the self-cherishing attitude that's to blame. Those who cherish others are the highest, holiest beings. We see that. We see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He just did a 3-day teaching. We saw he was trying to get to every sentient being he could without bias, because he loves all sentient beings equally. We saw that. We see it. We see these great beings like Gandhi and Jesus, and what quality they possess that really makes them outshine others. And we see that that quality is that they cherish others more than themselves. So we recognize that cherishing others is the way to freedom, is the way to true happiness, the way to really be a gem of the world. Think about taking on the suffering of all sentient beings and giving all the root happiness that you have and root virtues that you have to all sentient beings. Imagine that you're taking on the suffering of the hell-hungry ghosts and animal beings, humans, demigods, and gods, all the varieties of beings. Imagine that you're taking on their suffering and giving them happiness. Now make a firm resolve that you'll put others' needs before your own, because that's the way to true happiness and freedom. That's how the Buddha realized omniscience. Think about the incredible kindness that others show us, how we could have nothing in our lives that make us happy without others. The house we live in, think about the varieties of causes it took to occur. Who planted that tree that was big enough to make the lumber for your house? Who cut that tree? Think about all the varieties of things in a home, in a car, in a blanket. All these sentient beings were so kind and were so dependent upon all these beings. They got up and went to work, whatever was going on in their lives at that time, and they produced something that we now need in our lives. Something that comforts us. And it was because of their kindness, no matter what was going on in their lives, they went and did whatever it was they needed to do in order for us to have what we have right now. So kind. Now we arrive at the point where we say, I will take on the task of freeing all sentient beings from suffering and bringing them to happiness. That will be my duty. I will do that. And we recognize we don't have that ability. We are like all sentient beings, caught in cyclic existence, suffering, wounded, without answers, incapable of helping others in a complete way. We still have such self-cherishing attitudes and this grasping at self that we can't possibly see beyond ourselves enough to help others. We recognize that the Buddha is the only being who is completely able to help all sentient beings. The Buddha has removed not only the afflictive obstructions, but the obstructions to omniscience. And if one hasn't removed the obstructions to omniscience, there's still a subtle self-cherishing attitude. And if that subtle self-cherishing attitude is there, then we can't become a Buddha. We have a subtle self-cherishing attitude, and we have a gross self-cherishing attitude. So we certainly have to do something in order to become a Buddha. And we certainly can't help all sentient beings at this moment. So we recognize that we must become Buddhas in order to save all sentient beings. In order to fulfill all of our own needs and all sentient beings' needs, we must become Buddha. A being who's perfected wisdom, perfected compassion, perfected power, perfected generosity, perfected ethics, perfected patience, perfected effort, perfected concentration, perfected wisdom, and independence upon all of these perfections. He or she is now Buddha. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I must become a Buddha. Meditate on this idea that I must become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. In order to fulfill all of my own needs and all sentient beings' needs, I must become Buddha. Now imagine with this thought in your mind that I must become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, that all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are in the space in front of you. Imagine His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Imagine Kensur Geshe Wandak, all the Buddhas, Buddha Shakyamuni and Manjushri, Amitabha, Amitabha, all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, the beings of the extensive deeds lineage, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya to Asanga, all those incredible beings, Vasubandhu, Dharmakirti, Dignaga, etc. All those incredible beings in the extensive deeds lineage. Imagine the incredible beings in the profound view lineage, all those teachings of profound view passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to imagine Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Arya Deva and Chandrakirti and Buddha Palita and Chandrashita and Baba Vega. Imagining all of these holy beings. Imagine all the beings of the special lineage of blessings, the tantric teachers of Tilo and Naro. Imagining Milarepa and Marpa, all these holy beings there. Imagine Lord Atisha and Dron Tompa and the Kadampa lineages, and Lama Tsongkhapa, Jelsup and Kirtap J, all of those holy beings of our lineage. Imagining all of the deities of highest Yoga Tantra, Yogic Tantra, Performance Tantra, and Action Tantra, all in the space in front of us, all the 35 Buddhas, imagining all the protector deities. Now imagine that all around you are every single sentient being, all our dear dear mother, father, sister, brother, sentient beings, those who've been so kind to us in all of our beginningless lives. And many of our beginningless lives are all forming around us, imagining that we're emanating infinite numbers of arms and grabbing the hands of all sentient beings and bringing them here. And we're going to lead them in this prayer. We've led them here to hear this teaching. And now imagine that all the gurus and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have an immense bliss that goes over the merit field because they recognize that finally all sentient beings are in one place doing exactly what it will take to become a Buddha. We have to have the wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation in order to become a Buddha. And now the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas see that all sentient beings are here assembled, gaining that ability. So immense bliss goes over the entire merit field. And imagine that ourselves and all sentient beings have a white Om at our crown, symbolizing our body, a red Ah at our throat, symbolizing our speech, and a blue Hum at our heart, symbolizing our mind. White Om, red Ah, blue Hum. Us, all sentient beings, we all have this. Now imagine that all the gurus and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, from the bliss that they're experiencing by seeing that all sentient beings are here, start to emanate light rays and nectars, white light rays and nectars that turn into white Oms, dissolve into our crowns and all sentient beings' crowns and purifying our bodies. Red light rays and nectars that transform into red Ahs, dissolving into ours and all sentient beings' throats, purifying our speech. And blue light rays and nectars turning into blue Hums, dissolving into ours and all sentient beings' hearts, and purifying our minds. So imagine this is taking place almost like a blizzard of Om Ah Hum, white, red, blue, respectively, purifying our bodies, speech, and mind, and all sentient beings' body, speech, and mind. So imagine this is happening from the bliss that the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are experiencing because all sentient beings are here learning how to become Buddhas. Now, with this visualization in mind, we will begin with the Heart Sutra. Imagine that you're leading all beings in this prayer. All beings are hearing this prayer. All beings in yourself are meditating on the meaning of this prayer. Don't just make them just words. Meditate on the meaning of the lack of true establishment of all phenomena, the implicit meaning of the path of accumulation, preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of no more learning. Meditating on all these paths and being so grateful that you have this knowledge and imagining that you're traversing these paths and able to actually transform your mind through these paths. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity, no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Deyata onga de gade Bharagade Bharazanga di bodhisvanyada ongadi gadi varagadi varazangadi bodhisvanyada ongade gade varagade varazangadi bodhisvanyada ongade gade varagade varazangadi bodhisvanyada ongade gade varagade varazangadi bodhisvanyada. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Ngala jube ne jodamba ne ngushe du chu nga yi du do jen dru babo lama yi bu shenzi ne zong gandro zo la ja zelo agazamara de jana razamara be agazamara de Agazamara Dejanara Zamara Be Teata Ongati Gati Paragati Parasangati Bodhiso Papa Gonjasanji Gai Dimbidoji Lobodoji Mebodoji Shiwadoji Dragi Baji Metubeji Danji Shedin Korea Soha Gerin Tonjaji Jushiwada Medunube Dandarada Tomba Janji Mbonzon Zonjaji Daji Dejan Denda Delejo. Mandala offering for a quest for teaching. Fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas High, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. Zambe du jezimala saje jugi jabaduzo. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Yedam Guru Ranamanalagam Niradayami. Zanye janan zaye janan la shanju badu danye jazu ji dagi ji she ji bezanan ji drala benji zanje ju ba ju Sanje jadan zaji janan la janju badu da nye jazu ji dagi ji she ji be zonan ji drala benji sanje druba ju sanje jadan zaji janan la janju badu da nye jazu ji dagi ji she ji be zonan ji drala benji sanje druba ju. The one who is transformed into the reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings. The teacher, Sugata, and protector, to you I make prostrations. The one who has eliminated the web of conceptualizations and is endowed with the divine bodies of the vast and profound, who eternally shines forth in forever noble light rays. To you, the Buddha, I make prostrations. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If you are grasping, you do not have the view. May this teaching be heard and understood in the language of all sentient beings. Okay. So here we are again on Sunday, looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. We're all so fortunate to be able to even taste the smallest amount of this text in terms of meaning, just to even have an idea of the presentation of the stages of the path to enlightenment is so rare. If we think about the 8 billion human beings on the face of this earth, and then we are really think about how many of them will be presented with the truth of Dharma. How many of them will be even presented with the Four Noble Truths, and then presented with all of the pathways and so forth that are contained within the Four Noble Truths, and who will be presented with how to get rid of the origin of suffering and what the pathway to that abandonment of that origin of suffering are. Who are those beings? And when we really analyze that, we'll see it's such a limited amount of people that have access to this information, that will ever even meet with this information in their life. So when we look at this human life of leisure and opportunity that we have, and we look at how precious it is, we can even look at the preciousness of it within our human realm. We don't have to say, oh, we have the 8 leisures, we have this human basis. We have such access to these teachings that many sentient beings maybe had access to once but didn't have the karma to even connect with them, or will never ever see these teachings in their whole entire life. And we're so fortunate that we every week, and any time we want to turn on the internet, we can see His Holiness the Dalai Lama teaching. We can see Khyentse Geshe Wandak teaching. We have all of these teachings now right at our fingertips, and it's just so rare and so amazing. And even though everyone who has access to a computer can find these teachings, how many of them will find these teachings that will allow us to never have to suffer again, will allow us to have complete bliss, will allow us to really help those beings that we love around us in a complete way. So that should never be lost on us. When we wake up in the morning, when we generate this gratitude for having a human basis, that's really part of it. It's not just I have this human basis that could do this. I'm doing this. Right? I'm doing this right now. So rejoice in the fact that you're doing this and that you have this basis that it can be done from. It's so important not to forget that. Those two things. I have this human basis that I can do all these amazing things from. I could achieve an abiding nirvana. I could achieve a non-abiding nirvana that the Buddha has. I can achieve all of these realizations because I have this human basis, and I have an aptitude right now for it. I have a hunger for this knowledge. I'm interested in this knowledge that's so extraordinary that most beings will never ever think about. I'm thinking about this, so really, really rejoice in that. So this is the one pole that you're holding always in your mind, that, I'm so grateful. I have this chance. I have a chance right now. I have to do something about it because the other pole is impermanence. We're moving so quickly every moment towards our death, towards some more sickness, towards something that will inhibit us, keep us from practicing Dharma. We separate from something pleasant, we feel so bad, and it's so hard to study during those times. But right now, for some reason, we're able to be in a moment where we're practicing Dharma. And any time when we're breathing in and out, we should look at that moment as that chance, because there will come a time when we're not breathing in and out any longer in this basis that we have, and we can't be sure what kind of basis we'll be breathing in and out from, what kind of basis we'll have that we're breathing in and out from if we have breathing, right? We can't be sure if it's a basis that will have leisure, that will have opportunity, where we will have an aptitude, where we'll want to practice this. We have this feeling when we think about rebirth in previous lives, we just think about it's just us going on a vacation, right? It's just Jeff, right? We don't separate ourselves from that process. And this is a huge problem. When we think about rebirth, we almost think about it like, oh, well, what I know right this very second is just I'm going to pick up exactly where I left off. But we have to remember these beginningless lives and these beginningless things that we've thought about and these beginningless intentions we've had that have then propelled our actions of our body and our speech. Sometimes negative, sometimes positive, sometimes really, really virtuous and connected to the Dharma, but not usually. So we have this rare moment where we are connected to the Dharma. We can say for sure right now. And we want to make sure that in our next life, we somehow have such a strong connection to the Dharma that there's no choice for us but to be thrown into a situation where all the completing factors are there in our lives and so forth in order to practice Dharma, in order to move further away, move towards the freedom from cyclic existence. So that's really what we have to make sure that we keep in our mind. We have this human basis that has the potential. We have Buddha nature. We have a mental consciousness. This mental consciousness can mature. It can mature to the point of perfection. The Buddha was able to take the same exact ingredients and mature those ingredients to the state of perfection. The Buddha didn't possess any kind of different ingredients in terms of mental consciousness than I possess at this very moment before he became enlightened. So I have the same potential, and my mental continuum is not truly established, is not inherently existent. It doesn't possess some unitary, independent nature. So therefore, it can dependently arise as purity if I can somehow get rid of the stains that are making it impure through dependent origination. The dependent origination of removal will allow for the dependent origination of the purity of my Buddha nature to shine out. So I will become a Buddha and I will be perfect because of this mind I have right now. And we have to always remember that. And right now I know that I'm supposed to be engaging in Dharma practice. Now I have some affinity. Now I have some connection. But at the time of death, things are going to get really complicated. And it's going to become very scary. And my reaction at that time is going to have a major effect on how I will experience my next existence. And if I'm not prepared for that moment, and if I haven't done the work that I watched our teacher, Khenser Geshe Wandak, put in, then I will not experience death the way that he did. Just like life. Watching Khenser Geshe Wandak at the end of his life, Lori and I were talking about it, was just out of this world. It wasn't like a normal experience. He was experiencing on paper the highest amount of suffering a human could, just losing control of all of his independence, losing control of his functions, diabetic neuropathy, pain all over his body, but smiling as if he was experiencing bliss, not affected in any way by it, just going through it, just like, sometimes there's bumps on a road when you're in a car, and just not being affected right to those last moments where I interacted with Khenser Geshe Wandak. He was Khenser Geshe Wandak and so stable, so clear, not sad. I asked him if it was okay to intubate him, and he said, yes, certainly. With the clarity of mind there that's present. If I asked you, would you like to have a drink of water? Right? I mean, there was just such composure because the training had taken place. No magic took place. He day and night worked at getting out of cyclic existence, and day and night loved other beings more than himself. And we all know that. All of us who knew Khyentse Geshe Wandak knew that. When I met him in 1997 and I watched him pass from this world, 6 months ago, his affect was the same happy, composed being you saw sitting 24 hours a day on his bed doing meditation. When he got to the house, he was reading 1,000 pages a day a couple of years ago. Up until the last 6 months of his life, he was reading 1,000 pages a day in the night with a flashlight, trying to just show us that we have to grind out. We have to take these sesame seeds and get them to the point of tahini. Our mind is so wrong and so distorted and just will manipulate us into thinking anything, manipulate us into thinking we've realized things that we haven't. We need these texts to be able to serve as our signs and our reasoning to say, am I really having this realization? Do I have shamatha? Oh, well, there's this subtle dullness taking place that shows that I don't have shamatha. Do I have the wisdom realizing emptiness? Am I close to an inferential understanding of emptiness? Because I can't see emptiness according to Buddha. The Buddha said that, the Buddha did not negate inference. The Buddha said that right before you see emptiness directly, you inferentially understand it in a complete way. So I have to make sure that I inferentially understand it in a complete way to make sure I can see emptiness. And if I want to end cyclic existence, I have to see emptiness. I have to understand the lack of objective existence of myself and all phenomena. If there's any kind of clinging left, there's no way possible to be free from cyclic existence. The Dalai Lama the other night in the teaching and Dharmakirti's text made a very clear point, very subtle point, but very clear point. Removing attachment to self will not get rid of grasping at self. So we have to get rid of these subtle layers of our grasping that actually gives rise to an attachment to self. That our attachment to self is what makes us cherish ourselves. But the self-cherishing attitude isn't the starting point. The self-cherishing attitude happens because I grasp at an I as being truly established. I see myself as being independent, unitary, solitary. I see this I that has some inherent existence. And then I grasp at it. I become attached to it. And I think, oh, this I is really something else. Jeff is really something else. He's more important than everyone else. Without getting to the very, very root of that attachment, we will never, ever have it not arise again. And the Buddha said that he gave a lot of prescriptions. Some of them were for us to temporarily quell our mind enough to be able to see the true nature of reality. So we have to not be confused by antidotes. The antidote to attachment is not the antidote to grasping at true establishment, right? When we look at it in terms of individual isolates, the grasping at true establishment can get rid of attachment, hatred, and ignorance. But meditating on attachment and getting rid of attachment won't get rid of the grasping at true establishment. The only all cure is getting rid of the grasping at true establishment. You could quell anger for a while. You can quell attachment for a while. You could get really, really good at understanding all the subtle workings of impermanence and the 65 moments in a second that I'm going through right now. I can't find myself because of those moments. I'm always changing. You can think about that and get to a point where you feel you've seen selflessness because you can't find the self in a moment. But it's much deeper than not finding the self in the moment. It's finding the lack of true establishment of the self that's happening that's not happening in the moment, right? So there is something there in each of those moments, and that's the object of negation. There's something that you're adhering to no matter what in each of those moments, and that something that you're adhering to is a grasping at self and phenomena, grasping at, oh, I have these parts, I have an I. I have, mental and physical parts. I have an I. Grasping at these things. This I then becomes attached. This I then thinks that, this is uses improper mental engagement, and then comes up with all these reasons why this is attractive, and then becomes attached to it. But it doesn't start with this attachment. It starts with the attachment, the grasping at the I. That grasping at the I as being something that it's not then causes the attachment to occur, that then causes all of this. Actually, the order of it is the grasping at the I causes an inappropriate attention, right? That then causes this inappropriate attention, then causes the attachment to come up. We have this idea of, oh, this is that, and that. This is ugly, this is beautiful. And then, based on how we discriminate things, because we've, grasped at an I, and then we improperly pay attention, and then we discriminate things completely improperly, and then we become attached, and then we have aversion and so forth. So we have to find the true object of negation, and the only way we can do that is by studying, because we aren't born knowing the true object of negation. The Buddha, we hear these stories like, well, we don't really know what the Buddha did, but we can use our common sense to know at the time all of the incredible philosophical systems were present in India. I mean, extremely advanced philosophical systems that if any of us read, we will probably become that philosophical system. Really complex. When you study the non-Buddhist tenets in the monastery, and when you're working for your Geshe degree, or you're just studying the tenet system, you study the non-Buddhist tenets first, and you find out that they're quite appealing. When you look at what the Buddha was refuting in ancient India at that time, the tenet systems are completely subtle. And a lot of the tenet systems that you find are non-Buddhist are actually being asserted as Buddhist tenets right now in this day. You find all the negations of the Hashan view that we go through, right? This idea of just emptying your mind as emptiness. You find all of these things that Kamalashila was negating 1,000 years ago present in Buddhism in this day. Why is that? It's because there hasn't been enough intense investigation. People were satisfied with partial instructions, and partial instructions lead to partial realizations and partial understandings. So it's so important. As I was saying when I started, I just, right before this class, I got off a class in India. When we hear this information, we should always be learning and always understand that there's more to know. Okay, so I spent 25 years with Kensler Geshe Wandak and translated. Many of us spent many years. I sat through a class this morning with an incredible Geshe Dorje Damdu in India, and he was putting everyone on the spot and calling on everybody, and I gave a wrong answer. And I, am not used to giving wrong answers, and I saw how that felt. I saw my ego start to fight inside, and I saw it all taking place. And it was just such a wonderful thing to know. Don't be satisfied, Jeff, with partial instructions. You don't know enough. That's why you get up every morning before the sun gets up and you have a pile of books. It just reaffirmed, oh my gosh, you sound like you know so much, but you just said something wrong, and it took you a whole weaving through your mind to get it right. Now, what if you're on your deathbed? Can you get it wrong? Do you have that? Like, is that okay with you? That on your deathbed, that's going to mean a lot. It's really going to matter how prepared you are. And what if the question I was being asked that I got frazzled and wasn't able to answer was the thing that comes into my mind and terrifies me at my time of death, because I don't have certainty about the nature of reality. Once that certainty is there about the nature of reality, we're fine. Once you're an Arya being, you no longer have to be forced into the lower realms of cyclic existence. Once you see emptiness, that's not a Buddha or an Arhat. That's once you see emptiness as an Arya at the path of seeing. You still have many paths to go before you're an Arhat or a Buddha, but you no longer have to be propelled into birth again. So if I am on my deathbed and I haven't at least inferentially understood emptiness, I'm in trouble. And just about anything could pop up in my mind, and that it shouldn't make it so that we're like, that should just throw us into practice. So anyway, that's enough out of me for today. Sorry I didn't get into the Lam Rim Chemo more. Obviously, I'm talking about the Lam Rim Chemo by talking about this stuff, but I really think it's so important that we recognize this life of leisure that we have, and what's it good for? What's it really good for? Is it good for going to clubs? Is it good for doing this? Is it good for doing that? What's this human basis really good for? I mean, it's going to end. What will be the mark of if we used it right or not? It will be whether or not the continuation of our consciousness is going to have a good time, right? That's the name of the game. So that's why we go through these things in the text. That's why we look at, why this author is great, right? Why Lord Atisha is great, and why these great masters of all these lineages are great, to inspire us to know that we're at least studying with qualified, scholars. And, why is this teaching great? What's so great about this teaching, right? How do I listen to it? How would I teach it if I were to teach it? And what are the stages of the path that I need to go through in order to start as a being like me, who thinks the way I do? Only I know how I think, right? Only you know how you think. The mirror of the Dharma we look at, and then we gauge, how are we thinking? How are we not thinking? And only you and I know how each of us think. You may all be Buddhas just here, just encouraging me. I don't know. I can't be sure you're not. I can only be sure of my own mind. But it's amazing that I can be shown how someone with a mind like mine, because I know how my mind is, can go from here to even just normal terms, a mind like the Dalai Lamas, or a mind like Khensa Rinpoche, or Geshe Lobsang Gompo, or Geshe Dorje Damdu, or Geshe Aga, or Tenzin Ladrin La, all these incredible masters that we have around, and have had around. And Demolocha Rinpoche, I'm so grateful to have received the transmission of the 5 great texts from. Not many teachings from him, but I did receive that transmission, and all these teachers are so important to us because they help fill in the gaps of those partial instructions. So a mind like mine can be transformed into Dalai Lama's mind, or the Khensa Geshe Wandak's mind, or the Buddha, the mind of the Buddha. I have this Buddha nature. I have this seed of the Tathagata, this Deijin Shepi Nimpo. And this is what proves that I will be Buddha and can be Buddha. So, okay. Let's do the concluding prayers. And I'll have to get used to this new format, only an hour also. Usually we do 2 hours, but because now my class in India goes into this class, I think when daylight saving times happen, we may be able to switch it back, but we'll see how it goes. But thank you for bearing with me, giving a shorter explanation. So, departing from the 4 attachments. Okay, again, this was an instruction given to a great Sakya Pandit from Manjushri. He appeared to him in a vision, orange Manjushri, and said these things to kind of use, this is our mirror of the Dharma, to see if we're really practicing this stuff. And we have to be honest with ourselves. And if we have the things that are mentioned in this, if we haven't parted from these 4 attachments, then we have to be concerned. We have to be concerned that we haven't done enough, and then we have to do something about it. But not be attached, right, to this idea that we could get it all done. We have to be also patient with ourselves. So it's kind of a strange thing, right? We have to be patient with ourselves to know that since beginningless time we've had this ignorance, but there's also a sense of urgency to do something about it. But we can't let that sense of urgency make us start to become crazy, because we're not going to be able to. Spiritual progress takes time, and these realizations take time, but they won't start unless we put in the time. And little things will happen as we go to prove to us that this makes sense. We should keep going, but if we don't put enough effort in, those little things won't happen. If you're attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you have no view. So do concluding mandala offering and dedications and so forth. Concluding mandala is a thanksgiving for the teaching and the teachers all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni for giving us this nectar of Dharma that will be what gives us complete freedom, complete fearlessness, and infinite happiness. And there's no other nectar that we could drink that would provide us with that. So be so grateful that we have these teachings in our life. Whatever level of understanding you're able to have is probably more of a level of understanding than 99% of sentient beings, or maybe 99.9% of sentient beings in the whole entire universe. So you're in a very rare position. So please take advantage of it. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land, surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. Ngari rawe gorwe jinyandir menan dewa malu jongwe ne jenre ziwan din yazo yi jabe zire vadu den yo. In all my lives, may I never be separated from Kensur Geshe Wandak. May we meet with him in the emanation body as ordinary beings and in the enjoyment body when we see emptiness directly. In all our lives, may we never be separated from Kensur Geshe Wandak. And when we become Buddhas, may we help Kensur Geshe Wandak free all sentient beings from suffering. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate all of you. I hope you have a great week. And yeah, we'll see you all on Thursday.